Hey there, my name is Jasmine Skye, and I'm here today to talk about how I research literary agents. I said I would be doing this video in my How I Got My Agent video, which I will link down below, which was very, very exciting to film, and I'm super glad that I now have an agent and I'm out of the query trenches for a while. But for those of you who are still in the query trenches or are about to start querying, this is my video to give you my tips and things that I learned when researching literary agents and just sort of the process that I went through to research literary agents. I am definitely someone who was very meticulous about things like this. I made spreadsheets and I did so much research, looked at every single resource that I knew about. Hopefully my tips can help you with your researching of agents. I was inspired to make this video by Lindsay Puckett because she had a querying vlog where she went a little bit into detail about how she researched agents. So I'm going to link Lindsay's video down below as well. So anyway, let's go into how I research literary agents. For this video, this is gonna kind of be a voiceover because I'm going to show you screenshots from the various sites that I'm talking about. I'm specifically going to use the example of my agent, who is Mary Seymour of Kimberly Cameron and Associates, so that you can see how to research agents with a very specific example and screenshots from the various sites that I looked Mary up on and things like that, and hopefully that helps you out. So before I get to the screenshots, just a brief sort of PSA. Researching agents is so important. Maybe you're participating in a Twitter pitch event and you get a bunch of likes or even just a couple likes, which is totally fine. Please don't put the worth of your book on how many likes you get. My book that got me my agent never got very many likes on Twitter pitch events, and that's just the way it goes. Those things are so random sometimes, and it really depends on the Twitter algorithm and if you get noticed by the right people and things like that. So don't worry about it if you didn't get likes on a Twitter pitch event, but let's say you got a couple likes and it's by agents that you don't recognize. Before you send out your queries, you need to research them. There are agents that troll those Twitter pitch events that are smagents, that are not proper agents, or maybe they are good agents, but they're just not the right fit for you, for your story, for the career that you are imagining. That being said, Twitter pitch events are one of the ways that you can find agents that may in fact be a very good fit for you, but you shouldn't just focus on Twitter pitch events and events like that to be your resource for finding agents. There are lots of really great sites that help you find agents that work in your genre and are specifically looking for the kind of thing that you have written. One of the great ways to find agents is to actually find books that are similar to what you want to write. So in my case, queer YA fantasy, I went on my bookshelf, I grabbed all of the queer YA fantasy books, I flipped to the acknowledgements, and I looked to see who those authors' agents were. You can also look at various authors' websites because their agents are usually listed on their websites or on their Twitter bios and things like that. So find writers, authors, who write things like what you write and see who their agents are. Another place you can go is Query Tracker, which is a really great website to find agents that work in various genres. Query Tracker isn't going to tell you a lot of information about the specific things that they like, but it's a great place to at least write down a bunch of names and then do more thorough research. So once you've developed a list of names that you want to be researching, this is when you dive into the specific research about the agents that you have found. And now we're going to head into examples from my agent. So first thing you want to do is look at their agency. Here I have up on the screen the agency website for Kimberly and Cameron Associates, which is my agent's agency. The things that I'm looking at when I'm looking at an agency website, you want to get a sense of how reputable they are. You want to see who founded it, how many sales that founding agent has. You want to see if it has associated sub-rights agents. You want to see how many agents work at this agency. The size of the agency can tell you a lot. This doesn't mean that the big agencies are always right for you, or this doesn't mean that the small agencies are full of smagents. It just means that you should have different expectations about the agency and about how the team works together. Sometimes those smaller boutique agencies have a much closer working relationship with each other than agencies that are large and have dozens and dozens of agents. But other times, those very large agencies with dozens and dozens of agents are good because they already have relationships with publishers and editors that the smaller agencies might not have developed yet. So these are things that you need to weigh, and it's just good to know the size of the agency. The other thing you should look at when you're looking on the agency website is when you go to their submissions page, you should look to see if they are a no from one means no from all agency, which means that if you submit to one agent at the agency and they reject you, you cannot submit to another agent because they're the kind of agency that always shares manuscripts with each other, and if it's not right for the agent you submitted to, but they think it would be right for another one, they'll just share it. So they don't want you to be the one to take it upon yourself to go ahead and query multiple people at the agency. A lot of the smaller agencies have this rule. Not all of them do though. So again, always check out their submission page. But let's back up a little bit and talk about these specific agents. Once you have found agencies, and this is another way to find agents. So once you've written down lists of agencies, and you might find that agency list just by looking at agents and seeing who their agency is they're associated with, instead of being hyper focused on the agent that is initially on your list, it's always a good idea to go ahead and look at every agent at the agency, because one of them may end up being a better fit than the initial agent that you had written down. This is the agents page for Kimberly Cameron and Associates, and when I was doing my research, I looked at every single agent. I was specifically looking for an agent who represents young adult science fiction and fantasy, adult science fiction and fantasy, and who represents queer stories, because as a queer author who writes queer narratives, I wanted an agent I know who would respect that and who would be a champion for that. When I was looking through Kimberly Cameron and Associates, the agent who fit me best was Mary C. Moore. So I went to her specific page and read her bio. With some agencies, the agent's clients will also be on their bio page, which is great. With others like Kimberly Cameron and Associates, her client list is actually on a separate page on their website. So I'm gonna go over and look at that and see the books that Mary has represented. This is a great place for you to see not just what an agent says they represent, but also what an agent has actually represented and actually sold in. So an agent might say, I represent YA science fiction and fantasy, but when you look at their sales page, you've noticed they haven't sold any YA science fiction and fantasy. Now, just because an agent doesn't have sales in a specific category doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good fit, but it is something you need to keep in mind, knowing that they haven't already tread that path with the specific genre that you're trying to sell in. For me, I see that Mary has sold in YA science fiction and fantasy, and I see that Mary has sold a lot in adult science fiction and fantasy, which is great and what I want. I saw that she had also sold middle grade fantasy. While I'm not interested in writing middle grade at this time, I know that a lot of publishers and imprints do both YA and middle grade. So her having connections with middle grade publishers means that she also potentially has connections with YA publisher. And indeed, Roaring Brook, which is the imprint of this middle grade book that she had sold, also publishes YA. So her having that connection is very good as well. Next thing you want to do when you're researching an agent is Google and see if the agent has a website of their own. Many of them do. So I went over on her website and looked at specific things about her and what she had listed on her website. This again showed me some things about her clients and other things like that. So that's always a good resource to look at. The next really useful site you want to look at is Manuscript Wishlist. Not every agent has a manuscript wish list, but for those that do, this is one of the best sites you can look at to get a sense of their personality and more detailed and specific things they're looking for in books. Through this process, as I'm looking at their website or manuscript wish list, if I ever see something that stands out to me that I think really fits my manuscripts, then I always write it down, because those kinds of things are great to include in your query letter to show that you have done your research and you think that this agent would be a good fit, and that you are personalizing your query to show that there is a reason you are querying that agent. The other really important thing to look at when you're looking at their website or manuscript wish list is what they don't want. And that shows you that maybe things that you write aren't a good fit for them. Luckily for Mary, nothing that she has on her do not want list are things that I want to write myself, so that wasn't an issue. When it comes to submitting to these agents, you should never go with the submission guidelines on Manuscript Wishlist or on Query Tracker, because those are often out of date. You always want to default to what's on the agency website, though going with what's on the author's personal website is fine too. Now, if you're querying them because of a Twitter pitch event or something like that, you should double check their Twitter to see they might have special querying guidelines for that pitch event, and you should use those. Speaking of Twitter, you want to look at the website MS Wishlist, which is different from MSWL, Manuscript Wishlist. This website specifically looks at their Twitter, and if they have tweeted out hashtag MSWL tweets, this shows up on MS Wishlist site, so you can sort through and see specific things that they have tweeted that they want in their query inbox, and you can see whether or not any of those fit your manuscript. The other really cool thing about MS Wishlist is that there are keywords on the side from the agent's timeline that it will pull out, and you can sort by those keywords and really try to find tweets that fit your manuscript. And if you find one specific that really fits your manuscript, definitely include that tweet in your query. Again, personalizing your query to these agents is one of the reasons that we research agents and can really bump you up in their query inbox. Once you've compiled a really good list of agents that all seem to fit your book and your future career, you want to sort them. So I put everything into a spreadsheet, and then I went to QueryTracker.net, which I mentioned earlier. QueryTracker's free account lets you keep track of the agents that you've queried and see the most recent comments from other users that can give you a sense of what the agent's form letter rejection looks like or what they have recently requested. I do highly recommend buying the premium subscription if you can afford it, because it gives you access to all of the comments as well as Data Explorer, which gives you a really good sense of how long they may have your query in their inbox, how long they may have your full request if they do request a full, and things like that. This helped me sort agents by request rate. So those who typically replied to queries super fast, I had at the top of my list, because that would be a way for me to see if my query was working by querying those agents first. And if I got full requests and knew therefore that my opening pages and my query letter were good, then I could start querying those who had slower response times. This also helps you see what agents are agents that typically give CNR rejections, meaning cold no reply, meaning that they just never send a rejection, but you can look on Data Explorer to see if they have passed you in their query inbox and requested people above you, and therefore know, okay, I'm a CNR, and then you put that query aside. The premium subscription for QueryTracker is only $25 a year, which is super affordable. So again, I do recommend it when you are actively querying, and it is much more affordable than the next site that I recommend. If you want a full view of an agent's sale record, then you will want a Publishers Marketplace subscription. Publisher Marketplace subscriptions are $25 a month. However, you can just buy it for a month and then cancel the subscription, so you only have to spend just $25 total and just do all of your research in that month. You can also find friends and other querying people on places like Twitter who have Publisher Marketplace subscriptions and ask them to look things up for you. I was that person for some of my friends because I did spend the money to have the Publishers Marketplace subscription because I wanted to keep up to date with sales information and things like that. But I know that that can be a lot, and definitely being able to cancel that subscription now that I have an agent is something that I was relieved to be able to do. Sometimes you can find book and sales information on the agent's Publisher Marketplace page, which is free to view, but that is up to the agent to update, just like their website or their agency page. So it might not have the most accurate information or the most up-to-date information. The actual Publishers Marketplace website, once you subscribed, will have all of the internal sales data. So you go to the site search, type in the agent's name, and then scroll down until you find the Deal Maker section. If they don't show up under Deal Maker, first double check you spelled their name right, but it might mean that they have no sales, in which case you should always look up their agency, because it might just be that they're a newer agent and they haven't yet sold, but they're working under an agent who has sold a lot, especially sold in the category you're looking for. So then you can know that, okay, they have the experience helping their senior agent with these sales. They just haven't yet made sales of their own, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if there's not a lot of reputable sales at their agency, then that is a clear sign that they are not a good agent and not a good fit, and you should consider looking at other agents. But hopefully they will have sales. So you'll click on their deal maker page, and this will show you all of the deals that they have made. It will show you a short pitch of the book, the genre, how many books if it's a series sale, the editor at what publishing house, and information like that. A Publisher's Marketplace subscription is also a great way to find agents who sell in your genre, because you can actually search the ranking for agents for recent sales in a specific genre, and then look through all the agents and see what they've sold, and again look at the pitches of what they've sold and see if the vibe of what they sell is similar to what you write, and therefore they might be a good agent for you. So hopefully all of that information helped you out so you can get a good sense of what you might want to do to research agents. There are so many great resources out there. Those are just the ones that I use, and that's the method that I used when I was researching agents. You shouldn't be sending out queries until you have a polished manuscript, but I do want to note that when I was still working on polishing all of my manuscripts, my first book that I queried and even this book that got me my agent, and I was refining my query list, I used researching agents and figuring out my query list as a kind of inspiration for me whenever I was feeling down about my manuscript, or when I was maybe waiting for critique partners to get back to me so I could do the next revision. I would go and do some literary agent research and add more names to the list or take names off as I found out more information, and really curated a very strong list. This was especially relevant for my second book that got me my agent, that I made a much smaller, much more curated, specific list of agents that I really thought were a good fit for me. And part of why that list was so much better was because I just spent so much time as I was doing my drafting and my revisions, making sure that I spent a little bit of time anytime I was up for it, doing that kind of research, looking up these agents, finding specific quotes from their website or manuscript wish list or their Twitter, and putting them down on the spreadsheet so I could have very specific queries to send out. And that was really, really useful for me, and it obviously worked for me. I'm going to link all of the websites that I mentioned down below. I'm going to link my agent's agency website, her specific website, query tracker, Publisher's Marketplace, manuscript wish list, MS wish list, all of those things I will link down below so that you can look at them. As always, I also have links in my description to various causes that need your support, so please check those out and do what you can to support those causes in the United States and around the world. With that, please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. Thank you so very much for watching, and as always, I look forward to chatting with y'all in the comments.